Effects Jingles 1 and Effects Jingles 2 are software packages that contain dozens of audio samples that are supported by the new Audio Pool feature in Smart Edit 6. There are a variety of these samples that vary in use for bumps, transitions, and sound effects. To use either Effects Jingles program, you do need to be running Smart Edit version 6 or above. There's a couple of places in the Casablanca you'll be able to use the audio samples. First, we're going to go to the Audio Pool in the Audio Record Edit menu. The Audio Pool comes from Smart Edit 6 and is identified in the New Sample button as simply Sound. The samples that we create are kind of like patterns in the image pool. They're already stored in the Audio Pool library for you. If you did want to use your own sound effects, you would just simply use the normal input jacks or your CD input to load into your sound samples. Of course, keep in mind of watching out for any kind of music or sound effects copyrights. Here, with our new Sample and Sound Effects button from the Effects Jingles, we don't have to worry about that. To select and listen to one of these effects jingles, we would just simply click on the Select Sound button here. One thing to note before we enter the program. The length slider down here is not going to make any changes to any of the sound samples in the Effects Jingles packages. They already have pre-selected and pre-arranged sound lengths, so using the length slider down here below will not make any difference. So let's go ahead and click on Select Sound to get into the Audio Pool. Here we see what kind of like your image pool for your pattern generator. First you have your choice up at the top, and this is your product. And here we can either choose the Effects Jingles 1, Effects Jingles 2, or some of the default sound samples from Smart Edit 6. I'm going to start out here by choosing Effects Jingles 1. Under the program that you choose here for product, we also have Type. And under Type, we have three different drop-down choices. We have a series of sounds for fades, realistic sounds, and synthetic sounds. I'm going to start up here with sounds for fades. Basically what we're doing is you're using your elevator slider to roll through the list, find a particular audio sample that you like, and then hit OK to build it as a sample in your audio bin. Now I'm not going to play all these samples here for you today, but I'll select a few here to try out and listen to. And in order to do so, we would want to turn on this play button. This way, when this is active, you can actually hear or preview the sound before you build it. The channel slider here, if you reverse the channels, it'll flip the left and right channels, and it'll also make a difference if you were doing a reverse on a particular wipe in the transitions menu. For now, I'm going to leave this set to its normal setting. Now, when I click on one of the samples, you can hear these as we have this check mark turned on. So I'm going to go down through the list here and play a few of them for you. So you can see just a series of different sound bumps, kind of for fades or maybe fade outs of some samples or even in between transitions. Let's take a look at some of the realistic sounds. So we got an airplane here. So these are a series of sound effects that might be more realistic sounds that you could insert as sound effects on particular scenes. And then let's take a look at a series of sounds here from synthetic sounds, which are kind of computer-generated sounds, which might be good, again, for transitions or little bump sound effects. We'll listen to a couple of them here. A couple things to note here in the sound bin. One is we do have an I button, or information box, which will tell you information, kind of a little on-screen manual of the effects jingles. And you can move through the pages with these left or right arrow buttons. It'll give you some information about the menu. The other thing to note in here is that the sound samples that we listen to, whenever this is checkmarked active, we're going to listen up to 5 seconds of that sound sample. So the longer ones here, the ones that might be over 5 seconds, you'll hear just the first 5 seconds of this sample, but when you hit OK to build it, you'll have the full length in your audio bin. The other thing to mention in here too is that the sound samples that we listen to, you can actually put the Effects Jingles pack into demo mode in your Install Product menu. However, when you're listening to samples, you'll get to preview them here. You just won't be able to build them. So if this was in demo mode, this program, we'd hit OK, and you'd get a warning message here on the screen that would tell you this program is in demo. But you can still listen and preview all these sound samples from either of the Jingle Effects packages to get an idea of what's on them. Okay, so I'm going to take a sample out of here just so we can use one. We'll use this Rise 1 from the Synthetic Sounds and hit OK. And then you'll want to hit OK to close the new sample menu, and then here is our sample. Once the sound sample is in your bin, you can then use your trim button or your split button, maybe even apply additional filter changes with your special button. You can use it just like you would with any other audio sample once it's here in the Audio Record Edit menu. So I can also come over here to Audio Mix, maybe select from this little mini created storyboard up here. I can select a particular scene and pick a track and maybe add our sound effect. And then once that drops in, you can use your play button or how you normally work in your audio mix, maybe create it. And if you have any problems here, like I've got a little overmodulated area, I could highlight my sample and use the master volume slider here to lower that sound effect. Then let's see what's going on here. So a little sound effect bump during the zoom pull out there on that shot during the ski video. Kind of give a little bit of a background bump here on that particular scene. Let's take a look now at some of these samples from the Audio Jingle Effects Package 2. So I'm going to go back into Audio Record Edit and go back here under New Sample, and here under the Sound Sample, select Sound. And this time I'm going to choose Effects Jingles 2. Turn this off first. And under Effects Jingles 2, same kind of thing, as we have our type to choose from, and you have your 3 different listings. A lot more sound bumps here for sounds for fades. And we'll turn on our little preview. And what we'll do is we'll listen to a few other samples here in the Effects Jingles package, and then we'll revisit some other areas you can use the Effects Jingles. So let's take a look at a few of these. Let's take a look at a few of the other samples in the other bin. There's also some additional synthetic sounds in the Effects Jingles too. Some nice little sound bumps here before maybe a little sequence of video scenes. So we can use any of those and of course hit OK to build those into our audio bin. But there's another place that these jingles can be used, and that's actually in the Transitions menu with a new audio feature from Smart Edit 6. Let's go back out to the main menu and come back up here to Transitions. I'm going to find an area here where we can apply a transition to this little mini project. Here's an open space, we can apply one. And there's this new function here that allows you to add an audio sound effect to a particular transition. It basically just centers a sound effect right on the middle of a transitional effect, reaching into our audio bin. So once you choose an area up here on the storyboard, and I'm going to go for the cross zoom and add the transition. Now again, this new function here only accesses the audio pool and the sound samples that are currently in the Effects Jingles pack or with the Smart Edit 6. Again, if you'd like to use your own sound effects, then you simply go back to the Audio Record menu, put in your samples, and then go back to Audio Mix. This feature here just does it automatically. Do note that the audio samples used here are to be placed in the locked tracks of track 5 and track number 6 in your Audio Mix window. So I'm going to go ahead and left-click to open up our audio pool, and here's how this is going to work. First of all, just like your pattern generator, choose which sound effects program you wish to use. And I'm going to stick with the Effects Jingles number 1. And I'll choose this noise 1 sample here. Let's listen to that again. And I'll note that the time on it is 128 for the length of that sound effect. And hit OK, and now we can see the little music note will drop in right underneath and center itself under this transition. If I wanted to, I can come in here and adjust this length, and this might vary for you. You might find that some sound effect samples might require a little bit longer of a transition or a little bit shorter of one in order to make it center and fit perfectly. But in this case, I'm going to try just adjusting the transition a little bit, and it'll have to clear my sample, and I'll come back in and hit OK to drop it back in. If I use the preview function, I'm only going to hear just the sound effect. If I hit create and actually build it, it will build it together like if you did the create back in the audio mix window, and now I'll hit play. And we can check in the audio mix window. You can see how it centered itself. Well, we have a little bit of some overmodulation there with the red, so I can always drop this down and create it and get the sound sample adjusted. And let's try one more scenario, coming back over to the transitions menu here. Let's select another open area, and I'm going to choose another transitional effect here, like this cross option. And you're probably going to, of course, want to add your transition first and set that transition time. That way you don't have to come back and forth by removing a sample and rechanging your transitional effect. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this set to 1 second, and then go ahead and come in here to the sound sample and choose a particular sound effect. I like this one here from Effects Jingles 2 under the Sounds for Fades called Far Explosion. It's a nice little bump sound for a transitional effect. So I'll hit OK to close it and drop the sound sample in. Just a note, if you ever wanted to remove the sound sample, you'd use this button here to clear it out. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there and hit preview. Well, my sound sample is off, and here's a situation where sometimes it might not fit perfect because of your transition time or because of your sound sample time. But you can always adjust this back here in the mix window. So I'm going to come back over to Audio Mix, and actually before you do that, you might want to actually create your transitional effect so you can actually see the transition. That way when I come in here to mix, I can click on my sample, and because that's rendered, as I use the range button, I can position my sound sample as I see the transitional effect. There it is. So I'm going to scroll back and try to get the sound bump to happen right when it's kind of moving forward in the transition, right about there. Then I'll hit the audio mix window and hit create. Now I can come back forward here and play a scene, and we'll listen. See how that's more centered now? I get that sound effect of that bump, that kind of little boom, while that moves forward into the video. So you can kind of see that we're kind of using the sound effects samples from the effects jingles to try and enhance this little mini production for transitional parts or little sound effects bumps. It's a really great package to help enhance your video productions.